Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a very interesting show set up for you. Yep, the Michigan athletic director is in charge of the playoff. He is the chairman. I can't quite figure that out. Doesn't he have his hands completely full right now, handling the biggest scandal we've seen in decades?
Sign stealer guy.
With Michigan, the NCAA, Connor Stallions, Jim Harbaugh, all of that. And he's in charge of the college football playoff. None of this makes sense. That's just odd to me. We're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about Nico, who is questionable as how he has been listed on the injury report. We're going to talk about that, and also how Tennessee got jumped in the college football playoff. It's one of the reasons I want to talk to you about this Ward Manuel situation. I'm not liking this so much. We'll get into that. All right, so this is a story of talking about Ward Manuel. And, of course, what in the world is he doing as the chairman, given the circumstances that Michigan's in right now? And Dennis Dodd wrote, just what the heck is Ward Manuel doing as the new chairman of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee? And it says not that he's not qualified. He is qualified. I don't have any issue with that. I think he's got 2 masters. Well, actually, let's pull it up. Yeah, right here he's got a master's of social work and a master's of business administration from University of Michigan. And he's got a regular degree as well. And he's been an athletic director, an assistant athletic director, so he's qualified. I don't have an issue with that. It's just he's in the middle of a huge scandal, which I don't think he handled very well last year. I don't think anybody thinks that except the Michigan Wolverine fan base. That's it. Everybody else is ticked off, especially all the teams in the Big Ten. And I can promise you the Ohio State fans aren't happy about him being in charge, because if they get a second loss, you know, he can put the thumb on the scale possibly. And Ohio State and Michigan are like this. I mean, they can't stand one another.
Now tell me what the fuck. I can't fight with him trying to get at me. Will you just hold still? Just hold still.
So he's an intelligent dude and certainly qualified, but this is not the spot for him. He's dealing with a scandal, and like I said, a scandal that was not handled well by him or anybody. Look, he tried to give Jim Harbaugh the richest salary in the country for college football during this whole scandal.
Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson.
So I just don't get it. It talks about the NCAA issues, which is that's a nice way of putting it. Had to fire Juwan Howard because there was a lot of issues there. And we've already gotten the notice of allegations from the NCAA. Like I said, I don't know how in the world he has time to do this, run the Michigan athletic department, and negotiate with the NCAA on what's probably going to be a very long list of sanctions against the Michigan Wolverines. I mean, it almost has to be. And by the way, Michigan's not so good this year. Let's take a look at where they stand. Yeah, right here, they're 5-5. This team was undefeated last year, won a national title, and this year they're 3-4 in their conference and 5-5. They may not even make a bowl game. I mean, that's a heck of a drop. It's almost like if you have the other team's signs and know what they're going to do in advance, that's like an advantage maybe. I don't know. But it seems like without that advantage, they're struggling. I mean, undefeated to 5-5? That's weird.
Yeah, weird.
And here you can see the college football playoff listing. Tennessee's at number 7. They got jumped by Indiana and BYU. Indiana hasn't played virtually anybody. Their only big win was last week, and I guess you'd call it a big win. They beat Michigan, who was 5-5, by the way, like I just showed you. And that's it. Their schedule's weak as water. And they barely won. Look at this schedule. They beat the FIU Panthers, Western Illinois Leathernecks, the UCLA Bruins are terrible, Charlotte, give me a break, Maryland's terrible, Northwestern's terrible, Nebraska's terrible, Washington's terrible, Michigan State's terrible, and they finally have one good ball game coming up in 2 weeks, Ohio State. Then they got an easy game against Purdue. And before you say all those teams I listed are terrible, look right here. There's Washington. They're 3-4 in the league. UCLA 3-4. Nebraska 2-4. Michigan State's 2-4. Northwestern's 2-4. Maryland's 1-5, and Purdue's 0-6. You want to talk about a cakewalk schedule Indiana's had? They're actually probably a pretty good ball club, but, you know, give me a break. They have played nobody, literally nobody. They'll finally have to play Ohio State. They'll lose that game. And then they'll probably get in 11-1, no problem, because they've already advanced them up into the top 6. And Tennessee was at 7. They're still at 7. They should have jumped up to number 5, but again, they put Indiana and BYU in front of them. And as far as Tennessee's injury report, you can see where they've got Nico Imaliava as questionable. Now, I was feeling pretty good about the situation, thinking it was about a 75% chance he would play. I have dropped that to 50-50 at this point. Questionable, I wanted to see probable. That's an issue there. And the reason I feel that way is we saw that with Cooper Mays last year in the Florida game. He wasn't ready to go, even though we thought he definitely would be. And we've seen that with other players, other offensive linemen, for example, defensive linemen, just people that we thought would be able to play based on what Josh Heupel had kind of said. You know, he's pretty careful with his words, and he's also very much a gamesman when it comes to injuries. He doesn't let you know. He kind of acts like everything's going to be okay, and then it's not. And I think he does that because he wants the other teams to have to scheme for example, they've got a scheme for Nico and Gaston Moore. And Gaston, there's a good chance he's going to be starting against Georgia, which I cannot imagine a more difficult environment for him to have his first start at Georgia at night with all the chips on the table. I mean, we may have to win this ball game to get in the playoff because it sounds like the college football playoff committee is planning on creaking us. It feels that way by us getting jumped by BYU and Indiana. I don't like that.
All right, I'm going to level with you all. There's no reason to panic. Now, it is true that one of the crew members is ill. Slightly ill. But the other 2 pilots are just fine. They're at the controls flying the plane.
We could end up getting creaked big time. So we may be playing for our playoff lives in this ball game, and that's even if Nico doesn't play. Now, the committee may take a look at that depending on how the game goes and says, well, they didn't have Nico, then he's back. Let's say he's back the next week, which is most likely that he would be. They may take that into consideration and say, yeah, they lost that game, but they didn't have their starting quarterback. Now he's back. Who knows? But I don't like being in the politics of that. I would much rather somehow win this ball game than we're in. Even if we lost to Vanderbilt, we'd be in because there's no way they're going to keep a team that beats Alabama and Georgia in the same season out of the playoff at 10-2. No way. And I think we'd beat Vanderbilt, but heck, you never know. That Diego Pavia, he may have different ideas. Lord knows he's taken out some big dogs already this year. And it's Vanderbilt. I'm awful proud of them. I swear I am. And there's one other team that has really come out and had a good season so far, and that's South Carolina. I didn't expect that. Their defense has really shown up this year. Surprised the crap out of me. They've got them at 21, and I think that's a fair position for them. Lenore Sellers is coming along. You know, he's a redshirt freshman, 3-star, but flashes. He may end up being a darn good quarterback when this is all said and done if he can get his fundamentals cleaned up, which he appears to be doing. So good for the Gamecocks. It doesn't change the fact that I'm going to find out if you had our signals, because I think you did.
My opinion.
But, hey, you got a good season going. Good for you, and I'm glad to see that Lenore Sellers is doing well. I find myself kind of rooting for that young man. 4.0 student, I like that. So anyway, that's where we're at. And like I said, I just don't get this Ward Manuel being in charge. He needs to deal with the problems he has at home, which are major. That sign stealing thing, and then trying to make Jim Harbaugh the highest paid college football coach when he was overseeing that whole situation. That almost seems like a heck of a reward for mishandling a terrible situation.
It's got to be America's team.
What you should have done was go in there and clean house. And before you say, oh, well, that's easy for you to say, we did that. We did that with the whole Jeremy Pruitt situation over the $64,000 that was paid out over 2 years. Tennessee cleaned house as soon as Donde Plowman found out about it, our chancellor. So, you know, that's how you deal with that. I know it's not easy when you're undefeated, but, you know, that was a heck of a scandal. And I think that's a lot worse than $64,000, which is what a backup punter makes nowadays. Anyway, I'm not happy about us being jumped, not one bit. And Ward Manuel being in charge like that, that's As an SEC team, I'd much rather have an SEC guy in charge of that committee, not a Big Ten guy. But, you know, I'm sure Ohio State doesn't appreciate having Manuel in charge either. If they get that second loss, I'm telling you, they're going to get creaked. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know we continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit this little button right here. Won't cost you a dime, help you get my videos. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. Something to do with the algorithm. I don't understand the algorithm.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Anyway, we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.